When it comes to Pokemon battles, understanding speed is incredibly important. Every single Pokemon has a speed stat, and the higher that number is, the faster that Pokemon is. Meanwhile, the lower the number, the slower that Pokemon is. Typically, in battle, the faster Pokemon moves first, but there are exceptions to every rule. Stat boosts, stat drops, and field conditions such as Tailwind and Trick Room can easily alter the expected turn order, and when used correctly, they can easily apply pressure to an opponent's team. But another way of disrupting the expected turn order is priority moves. Priority moves are critical to battle because they're attacks that move outside of the typical speed bracket assigned to most moves. When it comes to mechanics in Pokemon, every single move has a numerical value assigned to it, whether it be 0, a positive number, or a negative number. For moves with 0 assigned, it's essentially business as usual with the speed stat determining who goes first. Moves with a negative number assigned to them make the user move slower regardless of their speed stat, while positive numbers make the user move faster. Now, naturally, negative priority moves come with their own risk by making the user move slower and therefore opening them up to being attacked. With the exception of Trick Room and Roar, there aren't that many negative priority moves that commonly get used. So for this video, I mostly wanted to acknowledge that they exist, but focus on the faster priority moves since they can be incredibly dangerous if left unchecked. After all, there's no worse feeling than thinking you and your Miraidon have the battle in the bag, only for a King Gambit to come in with a haymaker of a Sucker Punch and knock you out last second. Damaging attacks like Sucker Punch, Thunderclap, and Extreme Speed are all common examples of how an opponent can flip the tide of battle by having a slower Pokemon move faster than expected. And yes, the irony is not lost on me that I chose to use Extreme Speed as one of those examples, since the name literally implies something's taking its speed to the extreme. Anyways, getting back on track, priority moves also don't really care about Trick Room inverting the speed stats on the field either, so you're not really safe from them there. And then there's abilities that grant priority to other moves that otherwise wouldn't have it, like, say, Prankster and Gale Wings, for example, where Prankster gives priority to status moves, while Gale Wings gives priority to flying type attacks. So it's probably for the best when you're building your team to keep it priority in mind and having some kind of a countermeasure to keep yourself safe. So let's talk about some ways about getting around these priority attacks. Well, for starters, there's Psychic Terrain, which protects all grounded Pokemon from opposing priority attacks. So unless a Pokemon is the flying type, has the levitate ability, or is holding the air balloon item, Psychic Terrain will keep them safe so long as they're on the ground. Then there's specific abilities such as Farigiraf's Armor Tail, which protects itself and its partner from opposing priority. Then there's specific moves such as Quick Guard and Upper Hand, which are also meant to just deny priority attacks and keep them in their place. So I thought it would be a fun idea to jump into the Pokemon Showdown team builder and talk about some different Pokemon and the tools that they have to help get around opposing priority, which in turn might help you if you're struggling while team building to just have some kind of a countermeasure in mind. So let's jump right on in to the Showdown window. So, whereas I led with Psychic Terrain in the example of means of being able to stop priority, let's talk about Indeedee first. Indeedee naturally has the ability Psychic Surge. Depending on which form you're using, it doesn't really matter because both of them get this ability. And basically, on switch in, the Pokemon naturally sets the Psychic Terrain. Now, extraordinarily easy and also extraordinarily easy to have it lost because there's also abilities that naturally set the other three terrain conditions, whether it be Grassy Surge with Rillaboom, Misty Surge with Galarian Wheezing, rest in peace Tapu Fini, because you're not in this format, Miraidon with its Hadron Engine ability, which naturally summons Electric Terrain, which is also the big one to watch out for, because while Pincurchin does get Electric Surge, yeah, you're probably not bringing a Pincurchin to Reg G, you're bringing a Miraidon most likely. But anyways, the big thing here is it's very easy to lose the terrain if you're not careful. You need to be able to switch in and out fairly freely. So if you are using Indeedee, that is one thing you do have to be weary of, is you do have to be weary of having to switch in and out. Now, obviously, that could be okay. There's nothing wrong with having a bulky team. You just switch out your Indeedee, get them off the field. If your terrain gets overwritten, and then you could just save that in the back. You can definitely do that. Or another thing too is you can always have a main means of manually setting psychic terrain. Like all of the terrain moves all started off as moves, obviously. I mean, hence terrain moves. All of the terrain conditions is what I should have said. But anyways, all terrain conditions started off as an individual move. So psychic terrain can be manually set with the move Psychic Terrain. Now, probably not the best to teach in Indeedee this, because typically, regardless of which Indeedee you're using, you want all four of your moves to be devoted to a specific move set. Like with female Indeedee, you have redirection support and follow me. Typically, you probably see like maybe Helping Hand and Trick Room. On male Indeedee, you would probably see like Expanding Force, Trick Room, maybe Imprison to deny opposing Trick Room. So yeah, that's kind of the main thing here. But one thing that can be really nice is instead of using Indeedee, if you wanted to, you could use Psychic Terrain on another Pokemon. And the big thing is you don't really want to sacrifice one of your move slots typically. But one thing that I think could be a little bit reliable is if you combine Psychic Terrain with Prankster. So if you give Psychic Terrain itself some priority, you're going to get it up incredibly fast. So honestly, Meowstic might not be a bad option to consider running Psychic Terrain on as like a really niche pick. So you could use male Meowstic with the Prankster ability and then have it know Psychic Terrain. And then that way too, if you're worried about resetting Psychic Terrain, if you do have an Indeedee on your team, or if you just want to have a manual means of overriding grassy or electric terrain, you can definitely teach Meowstic Psychic Terrain and then have that +1 priority go off. And that might disrupt your opponent and throw their momentum off. Like with Miraidon, its Hadron Engine also gives it a special attack boost while electric terrain is active. And electric terrain also naturally just benefits the power of electric type attacks for grounded Pokemon. So if you just naturally throw away that electric terrain by having a manual Psychic Terrain or an Indeedee switch in, or even a Rillaboom switch in if you're playing Rillaboom, that could be really good for dealing with, say, Miraidon. And also, on the note of Rillaboom, Grassy Terrain also gives grass type attacks a boost in power. So really, this could be a really good counterplay to being able to just override Grassy Terrain or electric terrain. And then that way too, you can just stop priority Grassy Glide. Like Grassy Glide would go back to being a base 0 speed bracket while also losing its priority, which could be relatively nice. And on top of that, it's losing the bonus damage from Grassy Terrain. So Meowstic could be a really spicy option just to manually set Psychic Terrain, or you could just use one of the two different Indeedees with the Psychic Surge ability to go from there. Now, we have Farigiraf, Serena, and Bruxish all right here. And all three of these Pokemon, although they have a different named ability, they essentially do the same thing with Bruxish's Dazzling, Serena's Queenly Majesty, and Farigiraf's Armor Tail. These abilities all protect the user and their partner Pokemon from priority, which can be really nice. And with all of their different stats, like they all fill like different roles, which is relatively nice. Like for example, Farigiraf is a slower Pokemon with 60 speed. It also gets access to Trick Room. It gets access to Helping Hand. So basically, Farigiraf can invert the whole speed dynamic right there on the battlefield while also denying priority. So if your opponent's running faster Pokemon with moves like, say, Sucker Punch or Grassy Glide, Farigiraf is naturally stopping those priority moves, which is forcing them to adhere to the rules of the Trick Room, which is relatively nice. And plus, Farigiraf can also go for Helping Hand to boost up its partner Pokemon and give them a 50% boost in damage with whatever attack they're going for. And plus, I mean, Farigiraf also synergizes really nicely with the Throat Spray item and Hyper Voice. So, like, you could take advantage of the fact that it's got a really nice 110 special attack stat, go for Hyper Voice, do a little bit of chip damage to stuff, break a Focus Sash, get a +1 special attack right there from your Throat Spray, and you can go from there. You could also go like the more supportive option and throw a Terrain Seed on here. Like if you wanted to, you could go like a Grassy Seed or a Electric Seed, and basically both of these seeds would give Farigiraf a boost to its physical defense stat if the correct terrain is up. And honestly, with Rillaboom and Farigiraf together, that could be really nice because then you can still have your priority Grassy Glide so long as your grassy terrain is up, and you can still have priority of your own while not having to worry about your opponents. Like the nice thing here too is like I mentioned like stronger damaging moves for priority moves, like say Thunderclap and Sucker Punch at extreme speed, but like even Fake Out is really annoying because not only is it a little bit of tiny chip damage, it also makes you flinch if you get hit with it. So like even just being able to stop your opponent from doing that with the anti priority is really nice. So getting back on track here, like having your own means of having priority while shutting off your opponent's priority can be really nice with Farigiraf and Serena and Bruxish. And plus, if you want to have that +1 to your defense with like an electric or grassy seed, you could invest more into your HP and special stats. Like maybe you want to bring up Farigiraf to like say maybe 209. Maybe we slap a calm nature onto it to get a boost in special defense. Maybe invest into our special defense a little bit, and then invest into our special attack just to do some big damage. Maybe we'll invest a little bit more into our special defense just to try to get a little bit on the bulkier side. And then that way, too, we get a boost to our physical defense to patch up the lack of investment right there. Like just kind of spitballing. Like I've seen Miraidon for Farigiraf with an electric seed. I've seen Grassy Seed for Farigiraf next to Rillaboom. Like it could be relatively nice. And then you could also even have like a Psychic or Misty Seed to do the special defense boost. But I mean, doubling up Psychic Train and Armor Tail is a little bit awkward, but I mean, it doesn't hurt to have more than one means of being able to stop priority. If your team can allow it, definitely look into it for all means, like if you want. So we could maybe invest a little bit more into the HP right here. So maybe just spitballing some rough ideas. This isn't a moveset. This is just something off the top of my head here for Farigiraf. And the nice thing here too is like Farigiraf's fourth move, like of choice, like you can go for foul play, which inverts the opponent's attack stat on themselves. Like it, you ignore your own physical attack stat with foul play. So you could do something like that. You could always just have protect here to keep Farigiraf around because, you know, keeping your anti-priority Pokemon on the field as long as possible could be really helpful. So, you know, you could have Protect there, but I mean, if you want to go like the offensive route, you could also just have Terra Blast. Switch your Terra around, like maybe have Terra Ground, Terra Grass, Terra Dark, and then just give yourself stab damage right there with that Terra. So, like, you could do something like that. On top of that, too, like Farigiraf also gets access to Calm Mind, so you can boost up your special attack and special defense. That could be really nice. Farigiraf also gets Nasty Plot too, so like you could just sharply increase your special attack. And maybe you don't even like run any special attack investment. Maybe you just run like physical defense on top of special defense and HP, and then just have like a boosting move of choice, or just rely on a throat spray. So like you could just boost up your special attack 2 stages with Nasty Plot, or go for Calm Mind, boost up your special defense too, and just you can just go from there. And you know that could be some fun stuff to do with Farigiraf. Serena is a little bit more offensive on the physical side with that 120 attack, and it's also got some decent defenses with 98 in both its physical defense and its special defense. And what you could potentially do with Serena is like you could have a terrain seed on it as well, or something else you could do is like you can maybe go for like maybe a little bit more mixed offense and support. Like right here, I have Power Whip, Triple Axle, Helping Hand, and Protect. Helping Hand is going to be really nice because you're just benefiting your partner. And I've seen Serena paired with Kyogre, and it's really nice because Serena naturally complements Kyogre since it's a grass type, so it naturally has a nice offensive like pairing against Rillaboom since it naturally resists Rillaboom's Stab, Grassy Glide, and Wood Hammer, while also having access to triple axles. Like it can do super effective damage to a non-terrestrialized Rillaboom, and Queenly Majesty is naturally protecting Kyogre from Grassy Glide. So if you terrestrialize your Kyogre into a typing that resists grass, like Kyogre doesn't have to worry about Wood Hammer, while Serena is naturally keeping Kyogre safe from the Grassy Glide and its priority. So you could have a means of just outright denying the Grassy Glide, chipping down your Kyogre, and therefore Kyogre can naturally outspeed your Rillaboom since you typically see some speed investment on Kyogre. You can go for a Water Spout and do some massive damage to both sides of your opponent's field at the same time, and you don't have to worry about Water Spout getting weaker since Water Spout's damage output is based off of the remaining HP of the Kyogre. So Serena and Kyogre could be a really nice combination, and even like Serena, Calyrex, Ice Rider could be nice since Calyrex, Ice Rider is a really bulky Pokemon that likes to set Trick Room itself, and it thrives in Trick Room too. So like even just being able to protect Calyrex from Fago could be nice, or maybe even just being able to protect it from say a sucker punch, like if Trick Room's already up, like that could be relatively nice too. And Shadow Rider would also appreciate having Serena next to it too. Like Serena would be able to protect Calyrex from sucker punch, and then that way too. Like if Calyrex is going for Astral Barrage, that's great. You're also not doubling up on your dark weakness right there by having Serena next to Calyrex as opposed to like say a Farigiraf, so that's relatively nice. And honestly, like out of these three Pokemon between Farigiraf, Serena, and Bruxish, like I don't think there's any other abilities that like is similar to what these three have. So it's kind of nice to have at least one of these Pokemon not be a psychic type, so you can pair them with other psychic types. So like that could be relatively nice. And on the flip side too, like Lugia, for example, Lugia likes to set up with Calm Mind, and it's naturally bulky to begin with. So like if your opponent is running Prankster plus Taunt in tandem, like it's kind of nice that Serena can just stop the boosted priority Taunt right there. So Lugia wouldn't have to worry about that. So you could just safely set up. Similarly enough, Terapagos is another good Pokemon that could benefit from having Serena next to it. So like there's that. And plus you could go the helping hand route, and if you wanted to, like, you could maybe even go like just a more offensive route. Like maybe instead of running Protect and Helping Hand, maybe you decide to run U-Turn, and then maybe say instead of Helping Hand, like we look into some fighting type coverage right here. So like you could have low kick to hit like heavier Pokemon for some massive damage. Like a lot of steel type Pokemon are naturally heavy, and steel types would resist the combination of Power Whip and Triple Axle. So like it wouldn't hurt to have low kick. You could also have high jump kick too for like just explosive 130 power if you're okay with taking the risk and potentially taking some chip damage if you miss. So like you could do something like that. Ironically, that wide lens helps the high jump kick, but if you wanted to, like you could either maybe consider putting a choice band to naturally synergize with that 120 attack, give yourself a 50% boost while locking in, or you could even just run an assault vest, and then that way you're giving yourself a 50% boost to your special defense on top of that. So like you're getting bulkier on the special side. So like maybe if you're okay with not having any investment into your physical defense, like maybe you run up to 130, maybe run max HP investment, and then slap an Adamant Nature on Serena and just go high attack investment. Like you could potentially do some pretty decent damage with like a Power Whip or a Triple Axle coming off of Serena like that. And if you really wanted to, like staying grass typing is nice, so you wouldn't have to worry about like the likes of Rage Powder redirecting away attacks. But like if you wanted to go for like Terra Stellar on Serena and just have like a one-time boost to each of your moves, like you could do something like that. And plus U-Turn would also give Serena a little bit of pivoting options right there. So like if you have Tailwind up on the field, that could be nice too. Like Tailwind naturally doubles the speed of your team for 3 turns. So really, like if you have Tailwind up on the field, like priority is naturally a good way of getting around Tailwind. So like being able to deny priority attacks while you have Tailwind on the field is also going to be a good way of maintaining your speed control right there. So like with Serena having like a decent speed after being boosted by Tailwind, like you could invest into bulk and offense right there and go for some massive damage. And plus, when I competed in the LA regionals, like I played against this Serena, and it, let's just put it this way, it was a good thing. It was a good time for me once I got it off the field. Like I had a Rillaboom and I had an Incineroar, like with both Grassy Glide and Fake Out. So like it was good once I got that Serena off the field, because then my team was able to do a lot of damage. So like Serena can be really annoying in Regulation G. Like I think Reg G is a really good place for Serena. So without further ado, let's move on to Bruxish right here. And this is the last of the 3 abilities that I could think of that naturally deny priority. And Bruxish here, while not having quite as high as an offensive attack as Serena, it's an interesting stab option between Water and Psychic. Like, you can threaten fighting types for some massive damage with the Psychic type stab. Water can be relatively nice, and Honestly, I think it's kind of gimmicky, but you could have like Aqua Jet shenanigans and set that up with a Colossal. Like, Colossal is not typically a fast Pokemon by any means. It's got a base 30 speed, but I mean, if anyone who played Sword and Shield is watching this, you know exactly what happens when Colossal gets its steam engine. Like, it could be funny. You could also slap a weakness policy onto Colossal with steam engine, have a Terra type that's still weak to water, so you activate the weakness policy. And the nice thing here too is like you can like go ground, have like stab earth power, maybe have power gem, and maybe like heat wave. You gotta have like heat wave here, maybe slap protect on here, and then once you look at like your speed, like once you get to +6 speed, that's a 4 times modifier right there. So without any investment, like Colossal is sitting at 50 with just natural IVs. 50 times 4 is 200. So yeah, you can just naturally increase Colossal speed right there. Like even if you want to like go up to like say 70 right there, that's giving you 280 speed. So you're outspeeding a lot of Pokemon outside of Trick Room. Like you're outspeeding a lot of Pokemon even with Tailwind support at that point. So like you could like have Colossal right here next to Bruxish, and then you could just have a little bit of fun like with the Aqua Jet setup. And like on top of that too, Aqua Jet Colossal, like one of the weaknesses to it is redirection. But what you could even do to get around that is like Bruxish gets both Surf and Aqua Jet. So like you can have like the spread option that hits your side of the field as well. Colossal can just terrestrialize, maybe like invest more into your speed. Like Bruxish is the fastest out of these three Pokemon. So like you could take advantage of the fact that Bruxish has that 92 speed, maybe slap a Jolly Nature or a Timid Nature on it. Ideally kind of Jolly, and then that way too, like if you have to use Aqua Jet to do a little bit of damage to stuff, like you're not mitigating the damage too much. Like Colossal's a decently bulky boy right here with that 140 defense with just perfect IVs and no investment. So like you terrestrialize away from your 4 times water weakness right there. Colossal's going to be taking the Aqua Jet okay. So like Colossal can do a lot of damage that way, and then maybe just to keep Bruxish around, like you just invest into your HP primarily and your speed. Maybe go 1 extra point into your physical attack. You can go for the Surf if you need to. You could go for the Aqua Jet, and then that way too. Like you can just enable Colossal. Other than that, I don't really know what Bruxish does. I just thought it would be kind of funny to mention. And plus, I mean, it's like Serena and Furrygraph, where it does have an ability that protects itself and its partner from priority. So I figured it'd be worth mentioning it right here. Now, let's talk about some quick guard Pokemon and some upper hand Pokemon. So Iron Boulder. I feel like Iron Boulder is probably going to be a really decent quick guard Pokemon. But here's one thing that I've noticed while looking at the list of quick guard is a lot of quick guard Pokemon typically have other options that might be a little bit better than quick guard. So yeah, I feel like the thing here with quick guard is a lot of Pokemon also get wide guard. And wide guard is really important in a restricted format since there's a lot of powerful spread moves. Now, that's not to say quick guard is useless, but I found it was a little bit more difficult for looking into some quick guard options. So the idea here is quick guard is more of like a niche option to help enhance that particular Pokemon. I don't really think it's going to make or break that Pokemon if you don't put quick guard on it. So let's talk about Iron Crown, or not Iron Crown, Iron Boulder. Iron Crown does get it, but Iron Crown I feel like does not benefit from quick guard compared to Iron Boulder because Iron Crown is one of those Pokemon that just would rather run 4 different moves instead of quick guard. So Iron Boulder I think could be relatively nice with quick guard. And the main reason for that being it's got a really decent 120 attack stat and 124 speed stat. So Iron Boulder is going to naturally benefit from having Quark Drive active, whether it's getting a natural speed boost or an attack boost, depending on how you EV it. And then on top of that, if you have maybe Psychic Terrain up, you don't really need to have Quick Guard, but Iron Boulder being a Quark Drive Pokemon likes to have the Electric Terrain up, which is great to have that synergy right there with the quick guard, because now you're not having psychic terrain up on the field, which means you're naturally not going to be protected. So unless you're running like one of the three Pokemon we just talked about, quick guard might come into play here. Like Iron Boulder can do a lot of damage with that base 120 attack. Its signature move, Mighty Cleave, is a base 95 power attack that bypasses Protect. So Iron Boulder can hit through Protect and do some massive damage. Sacred Sword is also a really strong option on it, since it also ignores the stat boosts and stat drops of the opponent's Pokemon right there. So if you've got something that's boosting up with Iron Defense, like Sacred Sword is just going to just ignore that unless they're Terra Ghost. So really, if Iron Boulder gets a Sword Stance boost or two up, like Iron Boulder can do a lot of damage between Sacred Sword and Mighty Cleave, regardless of whether that attack is resisted or not. Now, what is really important here is Iron Boulder is naturally a psychic type on top of being a rock type. So like it's not the greatest defensive typing out there, and like Sucker Punch will hurt, especially where it does only have an 80 defense compared to its 108 special defense. So like Iron Boulder is not going to appreciate taking Sucker Punches. So really having the quick guard up can be great for dealing with Sucker Punch. It could be great for dealing with Fake Out. It could also be great for dealing with Prankster Pokemon like, say, Prankster Thunderwave or Prankster Taunt if you're worried about Iron Boulder not getting its Sword Stance off. So, like, Quick Guard could come into play really nicely there. But honestly, it might benefit from having a partner Pokemon know Quick Guard better than actually knowing it itself. So let's transition into Mean Shao. And the reason why I'm going to bring up Mean Shao here is Mean Shao also gets coaching. It also gets Feint, which is really nice. So Feint and coaching are really strong moves. Like coaching boosts the physical attack and defense of the partner Pokemon right here. So in the case of Iron Boulder, like if you pair Mean Shao with Iron Boulder, you can go for coaching, boost up the attack and the defense stat right there, one stage each. And then if you're worried about, like, say, a Fake Out or a Prankster move coming out, you can have Mean Shao with its Quick Guard and just deny it that way. And then that way, it's kind of a question of what is Mean Shao going to do? Is it going to go for Quick Guard? Is it going to deny my Fake Out? Is it going to coach the Iron Boulder instead? Mean Shao is also naturally an inner focus Pokemon right here, which means it's naturally immune to Fake Out. Like, it can't be flinched anyways. So, the really nice thing here is Mean Shao's partner is most likely going to be the Pokemon naturally faked out, so you can get around that by either going Protect on that Pokemon, or you can use Mean Shao to go for Quick Guard and then let Mean Shao's partner Pokemon try to get it set up and just take whatever follow-up attack the fake out user's partner might go for. So like you could potentially do that with Quick Guard right there. Like Mean Shao can just deny it that way. It could just go for the coaching into the Iron Crown, or not the Iron Crown, the Iron Boulder instead. So really, it would be relatively nice setup right there for the Iron Boulder for Mean Shao to just kind of do that instead. And plus, like, you get access to Feint, which Feint is great because it just removes Protect and Detect and all that fun stuff. So, like, maybe the Iron Boulder's already set up. Your opponent thinks they're being clever. They're going for Protect, and Mean Shao just says, nope. Like, although Mighty Cleave can hit through Protect, like if your opponent terastallizes into, like, say, a Steel type instead, and you want to hit him with a Sacred Sword, like that could be great here. Like Mean Shao just goes for Feint, remove the Protect, and then Sacred Sword just comes and knocks them out. So there could be that, which could be relatively nice. And plus, I mean, Mean Shao also has a decent attack stat at 125, and close combat's a base 120 move. So like maybe Mean Shao's just going for that explosive offense instead. So like, yeah, I feel like Mean Shao is going to be probably the best Quick Guard Pokemon out there. Also, it gets Upper Hand too. So, yeah, you could technically run Upper Hand, and then that way too, like, it's a guaranteed flinch on the opponent if they're going for that priority, and it's also a decent speed with 105 speed right there. So, like, Mean Shao should be able to outspeed, like, even other +3 priority moves. So like Mean Shao should easily be able to stop Incineroar going for Fake Out right there with Upper Hand and do some respectable damage at the end of the day. So like that could be relatively nice. So let's move on to Talonflame. Talonflame is also an Upper Hand Pokemon and a Quick Guard Pokemon. So One thing that I did mention at the beginning of the video here is Gale Wings gives priority to flying type attacks, which means Brave Bird, Tailwind, it doesn't matter whether it's damage or status. Like, so long as Talonflame's got its full HP, like, it's gonna get its priority flying type attack off at least that first turn, especially if it uses Terra Ghost to get around Fake Out or if it's holding a Covert Cloak. So, like, you can have a reliable priority Tailwind coming off a Talonflame, and then with that speed up, now your opponent really does have to either um, rely on their natural bulk or priority moves to deal with you at this point. So, like, having that quick guard could be great for stopping Thunderclap off of Raging Bolt or Sucker Punch off of Chen Pao, especially Chen Pao Sucker Punches, since Chen Pao has Sword of Ruin boosting its attack by lowering everything's defense. So, like, being able to have that quick guard could be really, really nice. And then that way, too, you're still benefiting from your Tailwind being up and giving you that extra speed. So that's going to be a really good thing to have. And then if you wanted to, you could just go for the upper hand to just do some damage as well. So, like, it's kind of nice because upper hand and quick guard, they're kind of like two halves of the same coin, where quick guard just stops the priority move, where upper hand is a little bit less consistent because the opponent does have to be going for a priority move for it to work, but it does have like that damage output. So, like, you can potentially break a focus sash too if your opponent's not careful. So that could be relatively nice at the end of the day. So yeah, I feel like that's a really good thing to mention. And then let's talk about Okidogi. Okidogi is probably one of the other upper hand Pokemon that I think is relatively strong because it naturally has the ability Guard Dog. Guard Dog, it naturally makes Okidogi immune to Intimidate, and if your opponent does try to intimidate you, it's actually going to give Okidogi a +1 attack. And what's nice here too is this is really niche, but it's really more or less a good means of keeping Incineroar in its place. Like, Incineroar comes in, it likes to go for Fake Out, and to an extent, like, Rillaboom could be shut down by the upper hand, but Okidogi is naturally faster than Incineroar, where Rillaboom is a little bit faster than Okidogi. So, like, Fake Out and upper hand are both +3 priority moves. Unless your opponent is running, like, say, heavy speed investment into their Incineroar, Okidogi is naturally going to benefit from Incineroar trying to intimidate it by giving it that +1 attack. And then if Incineroar tries to go for Fake Out, Okidogi can just do so much damage to it with the upper hand. So that's the big thing right there. Like, Okidogi can do a lot of damage to Pokemon if it gets that +1 off the Guard Dog. And honestly, Intimidate has always been a staple ability in VGC as well. So, like, getting that +1 attack should not be that hard. You might even get a +2. And then just having that upper hand just naturally make the Pokemon flinch that's going for the priority move. Like, that's really nice since that disrupts their momentum. So yeah, like, I feel like that's a really good point to have right here with the upper hand. And just to bring up the filter, just in case there's any other Pokemon that might benefit from having upper hand, like Conkeldurr might be spicy with a guts boosted upper hand. If you burn yourself with a flame orb, like, that might be nice. Halucha is another Pokemon that could be relatively spicy since it's relatively fast with that 118 speed, and plus it does like to run the Unburden ability, which naturally doubles its speed once its item is consumed. And plus, Halucha gets quicker too, so, like, that could be also relatively nice. Quaquaval might be an interesting option since it's a base 85 speed Pokemon, so it's kind of middling of the pack right there, but its signature move naturally boosts its speed. So, like, you could potentially have a really fast upper hand on your side if you get an Aqua Step or two off first and then start clicking them. So, like, that might be spicy. Weavile is interesting because it's a dark ice type Pokemon, so, like, it might be really niche, but I mean, if you want to experiment with Weavile and try to deal with Chen Pao, like, Chen Pao likes to run Terra Ghost or Terra Stellar, so Terra Ghost would naturally get it around the fighting typing right there for that weakness, but then it opens itself up to dark typing, which, I mean, Weavile naturally has stab dark, so, like, I feel like upper hand on a dark type Pokemon like Weavile could be really nice for dealing with opposing Chen Pao, so, like, you could have, like, that guessing game right there, so that could be relatively spicy. Let's see here. Hisuian Lilligant is a relatively fast Pokemon to begin with, and with Chlorophyll, like, I mean, another means of getting around super fast Pokemon is priority in general. So, like, Upper Hand might just be a good way of keeping them in check, and plus, Upper Hand would also gain Stab off of Hisuian Lilligant's fighting typing. Also, to go sidetrack back to the Okidogi is also a fighting type, so it would also have Stab Upper Hand, which is a really good means of punishing that Incineroar. So yeah, like I feel like there's some interesting upper hand Pokemon out here that are underused, like maybe Scrafty. Scrafty could be fun because Scrafty has Intimidate as well. While it is a bit of a slower Pokemon, I mean, like it could be nice to come in, get that attack drop into your opponent's Pokemon, so long as they don't have abilities that either reverse intimidate, like Contrary or Guard Dog, or just deny intimidate, like Clear Body, or even the Clear Amulet item. So, like, Scrafty might be an interesting Pokemon. So, that could be fun. But yeah, I feel like we've kind of like talked about the majority of the Pokemon that are worth talking about in at this point. So, to take it away, or rather to summarize, the big thing here is to deal with positive priority moves like Quick Guard, Upper Hand, Psychic Terrain, or even Armatail, Queenly Majesty, or Dazzling. They can all be really good ways of getting around that. And it's definitely not a bad idea to consider when you're team building to have some means of anti-priority on your team at the end of the day. Like, there's no worse feeling than thinking you've got the battle in the bag here. You've got a fast Pokemon, or even if you're in Trick Room and you've got the slower Pokemon, and then something just comes around and knocks you out with a priority damaging move. So yeah, it's a good way of just keeping that in mind, or rather it's a good means of being able to keep that in mind and then just deny it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening to me ramble about priority moves. Be sure to let me know what you think of the video down in the comments below, and I will see you next time.